dryly. "Exactly that," she said. "Both of us nearly ruined what was destined for us because we chose to believe we didn't deserve happiness. And knowing how close I came to missing out on the best thing in my life tears me up. We wasted valuable time being stubborn and stuck in our ways." "You're doing the same thing," Ash said, while the girls nodded and stared at me with sympathy. "You're telling yourself you don't deserve to live a happy life, whether it's playing with a beach ball on the shore or going to a bachelorette party on a $600 million yacht. It's not about how lavish it is or what it costs. You're holding yourself back because deep down, you don't believe you deserve it." "I know, it's just—" "Allow me to add something here," Nat said. That piece of shit reinforced all those negative thoughts with the garbage he spewed in his ridiculous threats. So now those shitty, untrue beliefs coming from an insecure man-child are riding shotgun in your mind. "I guess," I answered. "I know they are. I can see the guilt all over your goddess of a face," Nat said. "So here's how I want you to accept this invitation, which your boss," she nodded at Ash, then back at me, "is shutting down her gallery to attend. You don't need an excuse or rationalization. You deserve this, and anyone who dares to judge you is just jealous they can't go." She leaned in slightly. "We only get so much time on this damn planet, my darling. So why the hell would you throw away something amazing just because you're scared that living your life and being happy somehow makes you a bad person?" I exhaled and pinched the bridge of my nose. "I know where you're coming from. I really do understand." "Good," Nat said. "Guilt is for suckers and Catholic grandmothers. If you can't believe that you deserve the best this life has to offer," Darcy said, "you lose everything great that is placed in front of you, so don't waste it." I exhaled and nodded. 2 weeks in Croatia? I forced myself to get out of this pitiful mentality. I'd been drowning in the shallow end of the victim pool for so long that I was seriously starting to annoy myself. So it was time I put both feet on the ground and stand up. "The men are joining us after we have a week to ourselves on the yacht," Darcy said. "And trust me, I know this is over the top, but what the hell? The man that fate chose for me happens to have more money than an oil sheik and relishes this over-the-top extravagance. So..." She took a sip of champagne, offered a cute shrug, and smiled. "I plan to enjoy the hell out of it, and not care what anyone has to say about me or my guy." I shook my head and smiled at the girls. "I'm so grateful to have friends like you." "You'd better believe it, too," Nat said. "Now, you're joining us on the Astor's private jet tomorrow night. Mark my words, honey. You're going to be just fine."
49. Jace. Since the day I met Colin and Jake on my boat, I'd been working angles. Jim at the hospital board to shut down any dirt, Titus for leverage on Jonathan. He was foolish enough to insult Hawk and stupid enough to threaten Andy. Now it was just a waiting game until the call came. So when Seb hit me up leaving work, I didn't hesitate to join the guys at his place. After cracking open a much-needed beer on Seb and Darcy's newly remodeled patio, I leaned back and smirked at him. 2 more weeks and your little lover will be living here. Endless nights of passion in this charming beach house you two managed to snag. Seb chuckled, giddy as hell to finally be staring down his wedding day. This wedding's going to be grand scale, you know. Margot Astor wouldn't have it any other way. When do you leave? I asked. Tomorrow. Darcy's already there. I surprised her by having the yacht anchored offshore. He smirked into his bottle. I tipped mine toward him. Bringing in the Vanguard for the vows. Nothing like sealing the deal on open seas, my friend, I teased. Well, the wedding will be on land, he said, taking a sip. The yacht is for my lady's bachelorette party for the time leading up to the wedding. He arched a knowing eyebrow at me. I still can't believe you're not coming. My sorry ass isn't flying across the world just to mingle with everyone our families think has to be in attendance for special occasions. You know it's nothing against you and Darcy. I'm really happy for you two." "Thanks, man," he said, clinking his bottle against mine. "No offense taken, good friend. You and John are one and the same, except he is being forced to attend, whether he likes it or not," he added with a laugh. Then he looked past me. "The gang's all here, including baby brother, D-Stone. Looks like we might actually have some good shit to bury this fucker." "Let's hope," I said, looking over and seeing Titus and Dorian both at Jim's side, knowing Dorian was probably involved in my personal shit because he and Hawk had been overseas together for the past couple of weeks. "I heard a bit about what's going on. How are you doing?" Dorian asked me. "I'm hanging in there," I said. I wasn't used to my brother acting concerned for me. It didn't happen often, so I wasn't sure what to say. I wasn't aware of how serious your feelings were for your girlfriend. And I'm sorry to hear what happened," he said, clearly as unaccustomed to feeling pity for me as I was to be receiving it. "I just can't believe some rabid little weasel had the nerve to try to mess around with my brother. It's fucking bullshit." "Thanks, Dorian," I nodded, letting both of us off the hook of this awkward yet genuine exchange. "Now tell me you guys have what I need to bury this prick," I said to Jim and Titus, taking a seat around the circular couch. The salty, cool air blowing in from the Pacific helped keep my nerves at bay, but God, I needed some answers. Titus leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Looks like we have enough shit on this fucker to have him pack his bags and leave this state," he said in a low, clipped tone. "What happens when you fuck an heiress, knock her up, and then threaten her with a scandal if she doesn't get rid of the child?" Dorian asked, his expression cunning but dark. "What?" I said, incredulous that this asshole had the nerve to pull that move on a woman not only once but twice. This motherfucker is one hell of a psychotic fuck, threatening women the way he does. How did he manage to get around anyone who associates with people in our family circles? "Who knows?" Dorian said. "He probably met someone who knew someone's kid at that fucking Porsche dealership." "Which heiress?" I questioned. "Gillian Ward," Titus said. "She told me something a few nights ago when I hooked her up with a gallery contact in Paris. She was drunk and trying to hit on your brother." He rolled his eyes. "But she mentioned that some guy named Jonathan got her pregnant, and now she's convinced Dorian will never date her because of it. The name Jonathan rang a bell since that piece of shit had the audacity to insult me and Andy, too. So I pressed her for more info, hoping to dig up something that'd let me bury him just for the satisfaction." "Pregnant and drunk, eh? Seems to be the Ward family way." I shook my head at the disregard the Wards typically showed anyone who'd give them the time of day. They were new money, after all. "Well, I figured you'd be shuffling through your private investigators to nail his ass, but you found dirt without even looking. I guess that says it all." "No shit," Dorian said. "I guess she ended the pregnancy because he threatened to ruin her if she made it public. I suppose she drunkenly wanted me to be aware of all her innermost secrets in case I wanted to date her one day. Sloppy drunk dramatics, of course." Dorian smirked. "The start to every promising marriage," I answered. "You've always landed the good ones, haven't you?" "Wait, which Ward family are we talking about here?" Seb asked as Dorian and I laughed. "From Cambridge Steel or—" "No, the shipping magnates," Dorian finished. "She's not innocent by any means, but that family's reputation is built on legacy and control. If they knew Jonathan blackmailed their daughter," he shook his head, "they'd erase him, quietly and permanently." "Does she have proof?" I asked. Dorian nodded. "She didn't say, but I could tell she's holding something. I think she's scared, but if you needed her, I could push. She's obviously interested in a date, so I could make it happen if need be." "It's all the info I need," I answered, Knowing how these families work, all he needs to know is that it takes one phone call from me, and then he'll know what it feels like to be publicly crucified. He won't be able to get a job at Wiener Schnitzel when I'm done with him. That predator fucked around in the wrong circles. I turned to Jim. And I need to thank you for having your teams dig into whatever dirt that asshole tried to use against me. You helped protect my career and my life from his bullshit. Jim nodded and smirked. It appears it's now my job to get the backs of all you playboy doctors who waltz into my hospital with all your baggage, he said, taking a sip of his beer. I shrugged and sighed. What would you do all day without our dumb asses to keep you busy? I could think of plenty more important things, Jim chuckled. Seriously, though, your scandalous ass is all clear. That man can't fuck with your medical license or your reputation. Thank God. I took another sip of beer, the fire of rage burning hotter inside of me, knowing this shithead thought he could fuck with my life. So he has nothing on me. Not a thing. There's nothing to have, Jim said. The board reviewed everything this morning and confirmed it. The picture Jonathan tried to use to make his bullshit stick never even made it past the ethics chair. I nodded. I still can't believe this piece of shit went to the board anyway, I exhaled. I guess he thought he'd make a point. They also know about your patient's daughter, but you didn't break any codes, Jace. Not as a doctor and not as a civilian, Jim finished. It's not a crime to be a player. Titus smirked cunningly. So now that you've gotten immunity from your past and a scandal that could ruin Jonathan, not Jillian, what's your plan to bury this piece of shit? I took a sip of beer, completely relieved that all I had to focus on now was nailing this fucker to the goddamn wall. I'm simply going to return this bastard's favor. 2 days later, I walked into the Porsche dealership with one goal: make Jonathan Gilbert feel the same gut-churning fear he'd forced on Andy. I wasn't alone. Beside me in the waiting area sat my attorney, a man so sharply dressed in a charcoal Tom Ford suit he could have been stepping out of a Wall Street boardroom. He hadn't spoken since we arrived. He didn't need to. Clients like his didn't win in court. They made sure the other side never stepped foot in one. Jonathan emerged from his office 20 minutes later, still grinning from the 6-figure deal he'd just closed. His smirk faltered when he saw me, then flicked to the man at my side. "Let me guess," he said, sliding his hands into his pockets. "Here to buy a Porsche, Doc? Finally trading that scalpel in for something that actually gets women wet?" I stood, buttoning my jacket. The cars in my garage are worth more than this entire dealership, and none of them are Porsches. I don't buy toys to impress strangers. I buy machines that perform. I let it hang a beat, my gaze pinning him. Unfortunately for you, I'm not here to talk cars. His eyes cut to my attorney. What is this? Some hospital board scare tactic? You think a lawyer's going to rattle me over a little gossip? You don't need to worry about him, I said, stepping in close enough to lower my voice. What you should worry about is feeling exactly what Andy felt the day you threatened her. That sick knot in her stomach, that panic her whole life could be ripped away. You're about to choke on every ounce of it, unless you sign the papers in his briefcase and disappear. He stiffened. What papers? Custody, I said flatly. Every shred of legal and physical rights to Brandon, gone. Permanently. You sign and you walk away. For good. Why the hell should I? His gaze darted between us. Because you have some big-shot attorney here? Because of what I have on you, I said, my voice dropping. That could bury you with one phone call. You've got nothing, he shot back, but there was a flicker in his eyes. I smiled without warmth. Does the name Jillian Ward ring a bell? He inhaled sharply. Perhaps. You have no idea what that family will do when they find out what you did to their daughter with your threats. His silence told me I had him. The Wards don't just ruin people. They erase them. His voice cracked. What can they do to me? People like them? They take your job, your name, your home, your future, and you'll thank them for letting you breathe afterward. He swallowed, the first real crack in his boldness. How would you know anything that happened between me and Jillian? I know exactly what you did with Jillian because I live in that world, dumb fuck. Drunk heiresses talk, secrets slip, and those secrets land in the wrong ears. So far, I'm the only one holding that knowledge back from her family. The only thing that keeps it buried is you signing over full custody and leaving the state. Forever. He tried for a smirk, but it didn't stick. You're bluffing. You really want to test that? I let the corner of my mouth lift. Because I wish you fucking would. My attorney, still silent, opened his briefcase and slid the paperwork across the counter. A Mont Blanc pen appeared in front of Jonathan like the barrel of a gun. This is bullshit, he muttered. This, I said, nodding to the pages, is mercy. Sign them, and you leave with what's left of your life. Refuse? I let the pause stretch until he shifted. And I'll have eyes on you until you're erased from this world. His hand trembled as he signed, page after page. When he was done, I folded the papers neatly and slid them into my attorney's case. Jonathan Gilbert's glare followed me, but I saw it, the flicker of unease behind his bravado. He'd signed, but he knew exactly what I'd just done, and what I could still do. I paused in the doorway, looking back just long enough to lock eyes with him. You like threatening people, Gilbert? Here's mine. If you so much as breathe in Andy's direction again, I'll make sure the only thing you own is regret. The sun hit my face as I stepped outside, the weight of the signed custody papers heavy and satisfying in my hand. Andy had no idea what was coming, but soon she'd have the one thing no one could ever take from her again. I'd never been the guy who flaunted my family's name, status, or the fortune that came with it. I'd built my life on my own terms, far from their shadow. But taking down Jonathan Gilbert, that was different. This wasn't business, this was personal. And for once, I didn't give a damn about playing fair. If it meant protecting Andy, I'd weaponize every ounce of power, every connection, and every last dollar in my reach, until Gilbert was nothing but a cautionary tale whispered in rooms he'd never step foot in again. And damn, it felt good to be the ruthless son of privilege, because this time I wasn't doing it for me. I was doing it for her. 50. Jace. Unfortunately, I had to wait until tonight after work to see Andy, as her spa weekend with the girls had kept her tied up until this morning. And yeah, it sucked knowing she was just a short jog down the beach from me, but I had to be patient, even though I was crawling out of my damn skin with the need to just get this over with. I'd never been in a real relationship before, which meant I'd never gone through a real breakup either. So how exactly does someone go about getting another person back? Flowers? That felt like a slap in the face. A text or phone call? Even worse, in my opinion. None of that shit felt sincere to me. It just felt like avoiding the risk of getting kicked in the balls for fucking things up. So after overthinking every possible angle, I knew there was only one way to handle this, and that was to show up in person and hope like hell that there was still a chance. Still, the nerves were brutal. I didn't know what she was feeling, or if she just needed more time to heal. Maybe that asshole had completely wrecked her trust in me after revealing my obnoxious past, and she decided I wasn't worth the risk. I had no idea, but whatever doubts or insecurities were bubbling up in my head, I wasn't going to let them stop me. I was going to see her face to face tonight, and hope there was still a chance at reconciliation. A knock on my door alerted me to Jake. "Are you up for drinks tonight?" I closed the chart of the patient I was reading stats on before I left the office for the day to do my final rounds. "Nah, man, I'm going to see Andy after I finish my patient rounds," I said, standing and stretching my back. "You didn't text her?" Jake questioned, with a concerned expression. "That's a cheap way to re-enter her life, dude, so no," I said. "I'm just going to swing by her place after I'm done here. Drinks can wait for another time." I smiled, still nervous but confident. "You dumbass." He glanced at his Rolex, then shook his head at me. "Why wouldn't you text or call her? I told you I think it's too impersonal. I need to see her. After everything she's been through alone because of the mess from my past being used to manipulate her, I owe her more than a text or some bullshit phone call." "Well, can you move patients around to clear your schedule for next week?" "Huh?" I stared at him as if he'd grown two heads. "Probably, but why would I do that?" I stared at his expectant expression. "And no, I'm not going to the wedding. Seb and I already talked about it. He knows I'm happy for him and Darcy, and he also knows that I don't do events like that unless I'm forced to." "What if Andy is wheels up on the Astor's private jet as of 30 minutes ago to celebrate the upcoming nuptials of Mr. and Mrs. Sebastian Astor V?" "You're fucking with me, right?" I said, shocked that she would be heading to Croatia. "What are the fucking odds?" "The odds are forever in your fucking favor if you reschedule patients and show up on that damn yacht next week with me and the guys to join our women. And your woman." I sighed, then gave Jake a tired smile. "So this is my future now, having a woman I apparently can't live without?" Jake smirked. "Worse," he said with a chuckle. "Wait until you come home from one of those long days at the hospital and she's standing in the kitchen wearing nothing but chocolate sauce in some swirly edible design, telling you that if you miss dinner, at least dessert is waiting for you." He grinned wider, eyes drifting off like he was reliving a memory. "Let me guess," I said. "That was Ash's thank you present to you for bankrolling their lavish spa day, after which my lady was kidnapped and whisked off to Croatia?" "My bankroll is her bankroll, of course. But you're right, and that chocolate sauce will not be soon forgotten," he said, licking his lips absently and shaking his head. "Oh, and she's not your lady just yet, my friend. You still have to prove your desperate fool-in-love worth and show up like the Prince Charming you think you are by coming on that yacht with us." I sat back down at my desk and opened my calendar, making sure I could move my patients around to travel the fucking world and get the girl back. "I've got one I might have trouble moving on Monday, but other than that, I don't see any issues," I said, already thinking of ways to work around my tricky appointment. "Well, I suppose my parents aren't going to have any problems accepting Andy now, especially since she's the only reason I'll be giving in to their nagging about showing up to this event in the first place." "Are you booking a flight?" Jake asked. "I mean, I don't want to sound like a spoiled little rich boy about this, but a private jet is the only way I'll fly all the way over there." "You don't need to worry about sounding like one, you are one. And so am I, apparently, because I completely agree with you. No matter how hard we try to fight it, being spoiled little rich boys is exactly why we end up stuck having to do shit like this." I chuckled. "I'll hit up my parents. They're flying out Tuesday." "If you could have gone a day earlier, you could have flown on Jim's party jet," he chuckled. "Oh well, lover boy. It's a kill two birds with one stone situation this time," I shrugged. "I'll get my parents to understand how serious I am about this woman, and that I'm not going to allow any family drama at all. If they have a problem with her, then it'll be a problem with me." Jake nodded. At least they'll have one of their playboy sons settled down and not actively threatening to ruin the family name with scandals, he teased, with wide, humored eyes. No shit, I laughed. Perhaps that is how I should lead into this with them. I swear to God, I'm not about to listen to any shit from them. Look at our brave, young, and newly converted to love soldier, so bold and energized and ready to take on the family name, he taunted. Careful, Stone. You're kind of turning me on. I'll see you guys on Tuesday when we land, I answered. And I'll get Sebastian's information for the chopper to retrieve me from the airport and bring me to wherever the fuck he's got the yacht. With that rapid change of plans, and my ass still stunned that Andy was already on her way to Croatia with the ladies, I decided that after my rounds, I'd start moving pieces on the board. It was time to call my parents, loop in Sebastian, and finally put together a real plan to see Andy again. Now I just had to hope crashing this yacht party was enough to snatch her sexy ass back up. If nothing else, it was at least a hell of a lot better than sending her flowers or texting, right? All right, little stooge, I said to Duke with a laugh. Time to meet your grandparents. I couldn't help but wonder what Mom and Dad would say about this unexpected plot twist in my life, but it was as good an intro into telling them what was happening with Andy as anything else. And why, you might ask, was I stuck bringing Duke with me on this trip? Easy, because Duke is a dick. Even Ash's dad wouldn't watch him with a house full of grandkids. Sebastian had to check if someone on his crew could dog sit. On a $600 million yacht, you'd be surprised what they pull off. A dog sitter was nothing compared to the support ship offshore, staffed like a floating hotel and commuting by chopper. So yeah, finding someone to watch a 2-pound dog wasn't the problem. Making sure it wasn't some dude too busy trying to get laid, that was the issue. Otherwise, Duke was a good boy. I opened the SUV door my parents sent and was hit with a wall of jet engines and hot tarmac air. Stepping out with sunglasses on, bag over my shoulder, leash in hand, Duke strutted across the pavement like he owned it. I smirked at him, all 2 pounds of attitude, tail flicking, head high like he was giving the paparazzi a runway walk. We look like we should be on some Lonely Heart Bachelor reality show, Duke, I muttered as his paws tapped with purpose. Slow your roll, homeboy. He stopped to sniff the back tire of a fuel truck. Not a great idea to claim territory you can't defend. Ignored me, of course. 6'3", ex-college athlete, cardiac surgeon, and here I was, crossing a runway with a Yorkie on a leash that probably cost more than my watch. Worst part, he didn't just tolerate the attention, he thrived on it. That's why he drove me nuts, and why lately he'd been cracking me up. I adjusted my grip on the leash as he pranced up to the jet stairs, where Captain Reiner, my parents' longtime pilot, waited with an iPad and an unmistakable smirk. He stepped down as we approached, tall, silver-haired, and sharp in his uniform like always. The man had flown my family across continents for 20 years and had seen me in every phase of my life, hungover, injured, annoyed with this lifestyle, emotionally shut down, and completely indifferent. What he had never seen until now was me walking a rhinestone-trimmed, attitude-filled teacup Yorkie. "Afternoon, Jace," he said, voice polite but laced with amusement. His eyes dropped to the dog. "New crew member?" I arched an eyebrow. "We're not going there, Cap. You've seen me in worse situations." Reiner chuckled. "True. At least this little guy isn't underage and sneaking vodka on board." "Nah, he's just waiting to slide into your left seat," I said, clapping him on the shoulder. Reiner grinned. "Now you know what it's like flying with you." "Yeah, but he's easier to train," I smirked. "Good to see you again, Captain." I glanced down at Duke, who was watching me expectantly. "You've got legs, you know." He looked up the stairs, then back at me, blinked once, and sat. I didn't bother looking at Reiner. The last time he'd seen me, he was flying me, my friends, and a handful of gorgeous women to St. Moritz with enough champagne to flood a chalet. Now here I was, toting a purse pooch like a woman auditioning for a Real Housewives spin-off. I sighed, scooped Duke up, and trotted up the stairs with him tucked under one arm like I was hauling royalty into first class. Once inside the jet, I saw that my parents were already settled. My father was reading something on his tablet, while my mother looked up from her drink just in time to see us enter. Her gaze shifted from me to the dog and back to me again. "Well," she said, her voice clipped and amused. "This is new." My father raised an eyebrow without looking up. "What the hell is that, and why do you, of all people, have it?" I dropped into the seat across from them, Duke hopping onto my lap with practiced ease, like this was his jet, his seat, and his afternoon itinerary, not my parents'. "This," I said dryly, pointing at the dog, "is Duke. He's a Yorkie with a superiority complex, and he believes he outranks everyone on this plane." I looked at my dad, "Including your ass." Duke gave a tiny sneeze and settled in like I'd just confirmed his royal lineage. My mother's lips twitched. "And why, son, are you traveling with a Yorkie? Is it yours?" For the first time in my life, I witnessed both my parents trying not to laugh. I understood why, and God only knew what I looked like as a bachelor with this bark-sized Birkin accessory. "He's not mine," I said. "Technically. He belongs to Andy, though he's decided I'm his property now, so here we are." "Is this the same woman from the celebration?" my father asked, still watching Duke, as if trying to determine whether he was a biter. "Yes, and the same woman you met in Costa Rica," I said, leveling my gaze at him. "The one you assumed was with Titus." "And now she's with you," my mother said, drawing the connection. "Was with me. That's the reason I'm traveling to this wedding." I looked down at Duke. "And also why I'm bringing this rat along with me." My mother leaned forward slightly. "She ended things with you?" I gave a short laugh at the insinuation that I was some treasure because of my station in life. The truth was that if I hadn't become a changed man, Andy should have run away from me long ago like she was on fire. Yeah, she did. Silence settled between us, like cabin pressure shifting, while Duke added to the drama by sighing theatrically. "Interesting," my father said, seemingly bored with the relationship talk. His reaction was everything I had always feared about being in a relationship, feeling absolutely nothing, even when I had everything. It wasn't like my mom was unattractive or difficult. There just didn't seem to be any chemistry between them. They were so emotionally distant. Both were ambivalent to the point that they didn't even have anything to say, either to each other or, evidently, even to me about what felt like the biggest thing in my life. The idea of ending up like that baffled me. They lived like strangers who happened to share a house, a bank account, kids, and nice things. But I honestly don't know if they ever loved each other. Their marriage had always seemed more like a merger of two powerful families than anything built on love. Whatever they felt, if anything, didn't come close to what I felt with Andy. She made my heart race with something I hadn't had in years. Hope. The possibility of a future with her and her son lit me up from the inside out. That's why I wasn't afraid to bring her up to my parents. I didn't care if they approved. But I did care enough to draw the line. I wouldn't tolerate them disrespecting her just because she didn't grow up the way I did. If I were going to pursue her, then I was damn sure not going to let my family hurt her the way her ex did. "Let me clarify," I said, my voice low and steady. She didn't walk away because she didn't care. She walked away because she was trying to protect me. "Protect you?" my father asked skeptically. "What the hell would you need protection from that you or your family couldn't provide?" She was protecting me from a man who threatened to take away her son and destroy my career if she didn't cut ties with me, I answered, locked on his gaze. She didn't tell me because she thought walking away from our relationship would keep both of us safe. My mother's expression shifted, concern overtaking her curiosity. This was my mother's arena. She understood what it meant to be a woman protecting her man and her family. In her mind, there was nothing more important.
"That is very admirable of her," she said. "So it seems serious."
"Yeah, it is," I said. Or it was.
"And you're on your way to—"
"Show up at the wedding party yacht celebration Seb is hosting and get her back." Then I smirked. Hopefully she'll let me be her +1 at the wedding since I declined my RSVP. My father's brow lifted. "Do you think it's a good idea to pursue her now, after knowing why she distanced herself in the first place?" "No," I said. "I think it's a necessary one." They were silent for a moment. Duke shifted in my lap, one paw stretching dramatically across my leg as if claiming territory, while I absently scratched the top of his head, patiently waiting for my parents to process this. "She means more to me than any deal, any hospital board, any clean-cut reputation people expect me to uphold," I said. "She's not just some girl. Every day I spend with her, and especially now that I'm with her, I realize more and more that she's the one for me. She walked away thinking she was protecting me, and now I'm flying across the world to show her she doesn't have to." My mother tilted her head.
"And what about her son?"
"His name is Brandon, and he's a year old," I nodded. "And in the short time I've spent with him, we really bonded. It already feels like he's mine." "Well, I'd love to challenge your motivations here, but you never did listen to me when I told you what to do," my father said, letting out a low breath as he looked out the window. "I will admit, however, that it seems evident you've changed." Then he glanced back at me, shifting his gaze to Duke and back again. "Bringing a dog like this on board the jet, after telling us you are flying to Croatia to attend the kind of event you despise, all just to chase a girl." He shook his head in disbelief and exhaled, as if he knew it wasn't worth the fight. "She must be something special, if she's gotten through to you." "Trust me, I know. And don't ask me to explain it because it would make less sense if I did."
"I know one thing to be true," my mother gave a coy smile, "and that is that you wouldn't have done this a year ago."
"You're damn right about that. I wouldn't have even let a woman close enough to do this a year ago." She nodded, eyes softening.
"Then let's hope we see you at the wedding as her +1, and not ours."
My mother offered a smile that I know I'd never seen her wear before. My father finally looked back at me. "And if this little dog is proof of anything, it's that you've already lost the upper hand." I glanced down at Duke, now asleep with one paw over his nose like he couldn't be bothered with any of our senseless human drama. "Yeah," I muttered. "I'm painfully aware of that." Duke was something I really needed to figure out, especially if I were ever going to move in with or marry the woman my heart was set on. What the hell was I going to do to help this little turkey find his place once I got the lady back? He was the best pal a dumped fucker like me could ask for, but when a woman showed up, his whole personality flipped. Those were problems for another day. At this point, I needed to focus on ensuring that those problems would even exist in the future. Now that I was certain my parents wouldn't be an issue, my next hurdle was figuring out exactly what I'd say or do when I saw Andy again.
51. Andy. Nothing could have prepared me for Croatia, not even the stunning photos I'd obsessively zoomed in on after Ash sent me the link to where we'd be staying. During the flight, I even watched drone videos of the Dalmatian coast on YouTube, But none of that came close to the reality. The water here was the clearest, most dazzling blue I'd ever seen. No picture or video could have captured the magic of this place. Nothing like being here in person. But instead of feeling giddy like I should have, I felt hollow. I was surrounded by billion-dollar views, the kind of lavish escape most people only saw in magazines. And yet all I could think about was how I'd ruined the one thing that ever felt real. No ocean could drown that. From the moment we stepped off the Astor's private jet into the private airport, I was struck silent. The Astor's helicopter was sleek and silent as it carried us over terracotta rooftops, olive groves, and cliffs that dropped into diamond blue coves. Then the yacht appeared, and holy shit, these people knew exactly how to take advantage of their fortunes. Sebastian's, and soon-to-be Darcy's, $600 million worth of floating architecture, the Vanguard, was stretched across the water like it had been summoned by a goddamn Bond villain with impeccable taste. And we'd spent the past week enjoying the hell out of it. Our time aboard the vessel had felt surreal, like a fever dream where you are best friends with billionaires and someone casually hands you a mimosa before your morning swim. It was something you woke up from, questioning if it was real, only to be smacked back into reality where the real people lived. We ladies had spent the past week lounging on sun decks, paddleboarding into quiet coves, soaking in various open-air spas on different decks, and laughing our asses off over stupid shit while enjoying charming dinners beneath fairy lights and the Croatian stars. Of course, as expected, Ash organized morning yoga sessions on the bow of this floating palace, and Darcy let us watch as she was fitted in her breathtaking wedding gown like the princess she was. Every night, after the laughter softened and the music faded, my thoughts always drifted back to Jace. I should have been like the other women, buzzing with anticipation, hearts fluttering at the thought of being wrapped up in their men's arms again. But my arms were empty, and I'd been the one to make sure they stayed that way. When the men finally arrived and joined the fun last night, it brought a burst of fun-filled chaos that seemed to light up every corner, like their arrival brightened every ambient light on the yacht. Watching Jake, Jim, Spencer, Alex, John, and Titus with his brothers walk onto the deck was like seeing a lineup of glossy magazine models, and all I could think was how perfectly Jace would have fit right in. As anyone could have guessed, the men quickly paired off with their wives, leaving me to either dive into business talk with Titus and his equally attractive brothers, or explore the parts of the yacht I hadn't yet seen during the week. Though Titus, Colton, and Wyatt graciously and happily invited me to stay on the top deck for cocktails, I just wasn't feeling it. Damn it. I fucking missed Jace, and not even a group of attractive Spaniards with golden eyes and flirty grins could take away that ache. Tonight, we all spent the evening at the aft deck bar beneath a sky streaked with fiery reds and golds. The air was euphoric, filled with laughter and the clinking of glasses, the kind of warm, effortless energy that only comes from friends who genuinely love each other. And, of course, have the freedom and luxury to live well. As everyone started to settle into chill mode, I wandered over to the rail. Ash nestled against Jake's side, her cheeks glowing with their usual radiance after a touch of champagne. Sebastian had Darcy wrapped in his arms, whispering something that made her laugh and swat his chest. Natalia was telling a story about Spencer nearly throwing them both off their jet ski while Colton and Wyatt argued over which onboard toy was faster. Then there was Titus. I liked this fun, lively, almost boyish version of him better than the stiff, royal man I'd been on a few dates with. Even amid all the beauty and laughter, my mind couldn't shake the fact that Jace wasn't here with everyone. With me. I understood he probably had to work, but still. While I stood off on my own, trying not to stare at the sea like some lovesick idiot, Brienne approached. "Andy?" Bree said, leaning over with a grin that made both of her cute dimples pop. You look way too serious for someone on a billionaire's boat in paradise. Damn, I knew walking over here would make me look like a pathetic case. I smiled, trying to recover whatever I may have looked like. Oh no, I'm not serious. I'm just soaking this place in. Are you sure you're not waiting for someone to come walking on that water to rescue your depressed little ass? Bree teased, making me cringe that I'd drawn this attention to myself. I tilted my head, playing it cool. Unfortunately, the man I'm looking for can't walk on water. I laughed. No, he can't. She hummed. So stop staring at the water and turn around. I turned, and time paused right along with my heart. Holy shit! I unexpectedly laughed with disbelief. Things like this did not happen in real life, especially not to me. I watched as Jace walked up the stairs from the deck below, like the ocean itself had delivered him to me. His hair was windblown, and his white linen shirt, always rolled up at the sleeves, fluttered in the breeze. His sun-kissed skin, effortless GQ model presence, and his sunglasses hooked in his front pocket made my heart skip. Then, dear God, the perfect touch to the scene. He had Duke tucked under one arm, his eyes locked only on me, silently telling me that the two men I'd pushed away to make them happy were coming back into my life. My heart raced as emotions I'd never felt before consumed me in that moment. "Well, Hellstone, why don't you just make a fucking entrance?" someone said. The voices around me faded as Jace walked toward me, and all I could hear was my heart pounding wildly, my eyes transfixed on him in this moment. I couldn't even move. Can people get paralyzed by love? Because that's exactly how I felt. Jace set Duke down, and I chuckled when he strutted out like the deck was his runway, and the rest of us were lucky to be in his orbit. He gave a low yap, and with one glance, my cute little man forgave me for giving him to a better pup mom, and trotted over to me. "My goodness, little man, I have missed you," I said, picking the little guy up and smiling at the one man I didn't want to take my eyes off. "Hey," Jace said in his smooth and desirably familiar voice. "Hi," I managed to breathe out. "You brought the fucking bitch-yapping dog?" Jake said with a laugh. "Interesting play considering the circumstances." That joke was all it took to cut through the tension. The nerves of seeing each other again, and the awkward uncertainty of whether to hug or not. And suddenly I was in Jace's strong arms, feeling him exhale softly, a wave of relief washing over both of us. "Fuck, I've missed you," he said, then kissed my forehead. He took my free hand in his. "Let's ditch the crowd, gorgeous. You and I have a little catching up to do." "Congratulations on the upcoming wedding, Aster," Jace told Sebastian. "I knew you'd find a way to make me attend this event, coordinated by the one and only Margot Aster. But taking my girl on your yacht in Croatia was a bit much, don't you think?" I grinned, starting to relax because for Jace to show up like this, something had to have happened. Considering this was the first time he was seeing me since I lied to end things between us, and the way our group of friends were all grinning, it told me they had a hand in this surprise reunion. But what did they do? And what did Jace know to be acting so casually? "Well, when the opportunity presented itself in a package that was too hard to resist, I knew I'd be a fool to pass on it. Now you get to reunite with all the East Coast families you've been avoiding for your whole life." Jace chuckled. "And you were okay to bring the future Mrs. Aster into this life with this massive and overly extravagant parade?" Sebastian smirked, the handsome and usually serious man appearing more smitten by the hour. "This," he looked at Darcy, "is all for her and her alone. And the wedding venue? You bought an entire island to fit us all?" John teased. "No, it's a simple affair, just close friends and family. My future wife won't be paraded around in those circles, Sebastian said, then looked directly at me. Even if everything looks over the top, you can trust that you won't be thrown to the wolves, Andy. He nodded toward Jace. This man right here, who boarded this yacht with his pocket-sized puppy like the desperate fool he never thought he'd become, he'll protect you from the bullshit. If there's anyone who can tell a room full of elites to go fuck themselves and still get invited to the next gala, it's him. He smiled. Enjoy your reunion. We turned and walked through the glass doors that whispered open, bringing us to the other side of the yacht, where the ambiance was the same, except that no one was over here but a bartender and a waitress who greeted us as we walked out. Hold up, Ash said, just before we walked toward the bar area. Give me the dog, or you two aren't going to get anywhere without him terrorizing Jace. She plucked the dog out of my hands and said, Have fun. Thanks, Ash, Jace said. Sebastian will call the person staff to watch him until we're ready for him. Let Jake know he's not stuck with him this time. Don't worry about us. Go and catch up. Jace led me over to the bar lounge seating and smirked. Well, here we are again. You, me, and a fucking billionaire super yacht. Except this time, we're starting off the right way. He looked over at the bartender. She'll have a Cosmo. Was that the drink? He glanced at me with a smile. It was, I said, my heart racing as he ordered what I was drinking the night we met. So, what are we doing differently this time? I asked. Sharing my room with Duke? Absolutely not. He took a sip as soon as his drink was set on a napkin in front of him. Then he looked at the man. We'll be fine with this for now. I'll notify the staff if we need anything else. Looks like you know how it goes on these yachts. I laughed as the bartender nodded and excused himself. I grew up on these things. My brother sold him this one. He smiled as he shifted and looked at me earnestly. Jace, I said, I need to apologize. No. He cut me off. I know everything that happened. The only thing I don't know at the moment is if you'll still have me in your life or not. Of course I'll have you. My chest ached, swelling with relief and love. Don't ever apologize to me, gorgeous, he said, his voice steady. It's my job to protect you, not the other way around. I know why you did it. I know everything, actually. And I'm not just here tonight with Duke to get my girl back. His eyes held mine, unwavering. I'm here with the signed custody papers. Jonathan gave up every right to your son. I sucked in a breath, my head spinning. What? Tears blurred my vision, relief crashing so hard it knocked the breath out of me. How? Don't attorneys and courts? He grinned, sharp and dangerous. Let's just say being Everett Stone's son comes with perks. With my family's name and attorneys, things can move a hell of a lot faster than you'd believe. A sharp exhale burst from me, half sob, half laugh. How did you get Jonathan to sign everything over? Jace leaned back, sipping his drink, his eyes darkening. By beating him at his own childish game. The difference is, he plays, I don't. My threats were grounded in facts. His were built on lies. His jaw flexed, his voice dropping low. He understood when I told him to leave the state. And if I ever hear his name tied to yours again... His gaze locked on mine, fierce enough to steal my breath. Let's just say he won't get that luxury twice. I don't even know what to say. How to thank you. No need. And as for gratitude, you taking me back, giving me another chance, that's more than I could ever ask for. No, but... Andy? He cut me off gently, a smirk tugging at his mouth, humor sliding back into his expression. You hurt yourself, me, even the fucking dog. All because you didn't know me well enough to realize I'd protect you from anything that tried to touch you. And if I'd known just how selfless you were, I never would have let you walk away so easily. He lifted his glass, tapping it lightly against mine. So right now, we start over. By actually talking about who the fuck we are. I'll go first. His eyes locked on mine, intense. My favorite color is gold, because of those flecks in your eyes. The way they melt into green and turn them into the most stunning hazel. He leaned in slightly, playful. And damn it, it only happens when you're excited, climaxing. He raised a brow, teasing. Or smiling at me. His grin softened, sweet. Your turn. Favorite color. Go. How am I supposed to follow that? I laughed. Just tell me your favorite color, Miller. No speeches required. I just thought you should know mine. Overcomplicating shit is half the reason we're in this mess. He chuckled. Favorite color? Yellow. It's happy. I love it. His grin softened. I love you. Okay, next. Favorite sport? I'm not into sports, I admitted. Yours? Football. Which, apparently, I'll be watching alone once you and I start living our happily ever after. His gaze deepened, pulling me in. Your eyes do something to me, you know? The first time I saw you come, watching your face, those eyes, fuck. I've never wanted anything so bad in my life. And now I get the chance to make you mine for real. So much for cute first date questions. His mouth was on mine before I could breathe, his arms locking me in as he steered me toward the elevators like a man on a mission. The kiss was possessive, all-consuming, and I was seconds from unraveling. If he didn't have me against a wall and inside me the second those doors closed, I was going to come undone right here in the damn elevator. 52. Andy. Breathlessly, between long, possessive kisses, I managed to tell Jace where my room was, yet somehow we still ended up in a much grander suite. And all I could do was pray this wasn't Sebastian and Darcy's master suite we'd just impulsively kissed our way into. Jace carried me inside, his mouth now at my neck, possessive and unrelenting as we moved through the opulent living space. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the suite, revealing a private balcony that spanned the entire length of the room. It was gorgeous, but I barely registered it. Without warning, Jace pulled back, leaving me breathless and confused. Before we go any further, before I worship your gorgeous body all night long, I have something for you. He kissed the tip of my nose, then guided me over to where a sleek briefcase sat waiting on a desk. He flipped it open, slid out a folder, and pressed it into my hands. Open it. Better than any gift this man could ever give me, I flipped open the folder and carefully turned through the pages. At first it was nothing but lines of legal jargon, black ink that meant nothing to my racing heart. Until it did. My eyes landed on the bottom of the last page, and there it was. Jonathan's signature. Bold, final, and binding. A sharp gasp escaped me as the words blurred. My hand flew to my mouth, my other trembling so hard I could barely hold the paper steady. Page after page, I searched again just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. He'd signed everything over. All custody, all rights, every ounce of control he'd ever had. Relief slammed into me so hard I thought my knees might give. Tears welled fast, spilling before I could blink them back. No more threats, no more abuse, no more of that bastard. My son was mine, completely mine. Oh my God, I finally spoke. He's really gone. And he'll never hurt you again, Jace said firmly. I love you. It was all I could get out, my chest swelling, relief surging through me so intensely it left me trembling. I love you more. He smiled, easing the folder from my fingers and setting it back on the desk. I just wanted you to see it. To know that man is truly out of your life." Before I could answer, his mouth was back on mine, dominant, claiming, just as it had been that very first night. I melted against him, consumed by the fire I'd been starving for. The world narrowed to his lips, his touch, his scent. I didn't even realize how we made it to the bed. One second we were tangled in the kiss, the next my sundress was gone, his shirt discarded, and I was unraveling beneath him, high on him, on this moment, on the impossible miracle of being his again. In the middle of knowing exactly where this was headed, because that's how Jace and I had always fucked, he stopped. Just stopped. And now his eyes were locked on mine. "Now that I've felt what it's like to lose you, to lose a future with you, I can't take a single second for granted. I've been given a second chance, and I'm not wasting it." His mouth brushed along my jaw, each kiss making my body burn hotter, ache deeper, until I was trembling with urgency. His gaze caught mine again, steady and sure. "Tonight is going to be different, gorgeous. Instead of just fucking you until sunrise." His hand swept gently across my forehead, and his smirk curved into a tender kiss. "Tonight I'm going to memorize every inch of your body. Worship every part of the woman who stole my heart without even trying." His lips found the hollow between my collarbones, and the jolt that shot through me nearly unraveled me on the spot. "We went too hard too fast from the start." His voice lowered, eyes burning into mine like he could see every unspoken thought I was too afraid to admit. "But not tonight. Tonight I take it slow. I unravel you piece by piece. I prove to you that you're mine, and that I'll be yours, forever." His tone dropped even lower, rough and raw, "because the time I spent not knowing if I'd ever get you back made one thing clear. You already have my heart, and there's not a damn thing I can do about it." Something shifted then. The air around him changed, pulling me with it. This was the real Jace, the man who loved me fiercely and without needing a reason. My body and soul bowed to that truth, desperate for more. And when his final gaze pinned me in place after telling me he'd be mine forever, God, it didn't feel like being trapped. It felt like being chosen. Words failed me. Even if I tried, I couldn't have spoken. And like he promised, he went slow as fiery hell, igniting everything and more than I'd ever felt before. He kissed the center of my chest through the lace of my bra, then down along the curve of my waist. I melted beneath him as his palms slid up my thighs, slow and commanding, until they framed my hips like he was anchoring himself there, demanding in a gentle way that I would be going nowhere. Unlike the wild and untamed Jace that I craved in bed, this version of him didn't rush, not even a little, and it had me dripping with heated desire and shattering inside already. I fell under a trance of euphoria as he explored me with the kind of patience that told me he'd been imagining this, craving this, every night he'd lain in silence while we were separated, wondering if he'd ever get to feel me again. And now that he had me beneath him, he wasn't wasting a second of being on this treasured moment we'd been gifted. I moaned, a current of pleasure rippling from my aching clit and surging through my belly as he kissed me where the energy coiled, then moved to my hip, pressing his perfect lips into the tender skin of my inner thigh. Each kiss from him felt like a promise, and each breath seemed to prove that pledge. My entire body shuddered as his fingers traced over my panties, teasing but not yet sliding them down, right where I was aching and burning for him. Instead, he leaned back up and kissed me once, soft and reverently slow, his hand cradling my jaw. "Do you have any idea what you've done to me, gorgeous?" he whispered, brushing his thumb over my cheek. "You've undone every wall I've spent a lifetime building without even trying." I didn't speak. I couldn't. This was a different man, more beautiful than I ever imagined he could be. With this new hunger and passion radiating from him, my heart pounded so hard I felt it in my fingertips. And just when I thought I'd managed to contain the way I was coming undone beneath him, he began to undress me with a slow, reverent care that shattered whatever control I had left. I thought I might explode as he slid my panties down, unhooked my bra, and laid each piece aside. It was almost like he was memorizing what I looked like as I watched him strip me bare, making me feel worshipped in a way I didn't even know I needed. And when he finally saw all of me again after all this time, he didn't say a word. He just exhaled and looked at me like I'd unraveled something inside of him. "You're so goddamn beautiful," he said, almost to himself. "God, you're everything. And I've missed you so much." I arched into him when his lips found my hard nipple, my skin burning everywhere his lips touched. I was near combusting, overwhelmed by the sensation of his body hovering just above mine, like he couldn't bear not to press fully into me. Jace moved with fervent desire, his clothes eventually gone, and then he was with me again, settling over me and bracing his strong hands on either side of my head. His length pressed between my thighs, thick and hot against my soaked slit, letting me feel the tension coiled in every muscle of his body. "I want to prove to you how much I love you." His voice was gravelly yet soft near my ear. "I want you to fully understand what you mean to me." When he gently and slowly pushed inside of me, moving as deeply as my body could take him, he let out a deep groan of satisfaction. It sounded like something torn from the chest of a man who hadn't let himself feel anything in his entire lifetime until now. He was damn right that this was going to be different than before. He was proving that with every move he made. It was almost as if he were a man who finally allowed himself to find peace in love instead of fearing it. He paused once he was fully inside me, his forehead pressed to mine, like the intensity of allowing himself to feel all these emotions and experiencing the pleasures simultaneously was too much for him. My entire being melted into him at that moment. This was real. This was raw. This was more than just hot, desirous sex. This was the two hearts surging to become one. You are, home to me," he whispered. "And I haven't had one in a very long time." I wrapped my arms around him, my legs curled tight around his waist, and that's when he found his slow, controlled rhythm, moving deep enough that every thrust made me tremble beneath him. The way we kissed, the way he moved inside me with our mouths never far apart, his fingers working slow, deliberate circles over where I ached most. He practically shattered me the moment he touched me like that. His grip? Hell. Everything about this moment was earth-shattering. There were no dirty words and nothing was rushed. There was nothing but his devotion to me and mine to him. It was deeper than I imagined sex with a man could be. Jace was making love like someone who'd known loss, who'd lived without touch, without connection, without softness. And now that he had it, he was clinging to it fiercely, determined that neither of us would ever feel separation or heartbreak again. My arousal built by the second, and I knew I couldn't hold on to this edge much longer. Jace's rhythm quickened, matching the surge that forced my hips to respond to every thrust. "I need to watch you come, baby," he exhaled, his eyes liquid in their trance. "That's it," he exhaled and smiled. "Give me all of you." The coiled-up orgasm that had been waiting for this man's permission to release decimated every other orgasm I'd ever had. I couldn't stop crying out his name as the pleasure burned and radiated through every inch of me, more powerful and intense than anything I'd ever fucking felt before. Jace arched into my release, a low growl escaping him as his body tensed with one final thrust, perfectly syncing with the pleasure I was still riding. And unlike the other times, the breathless talking, the urgent desire to keep building on back-to-back orgasms, this time we let ourselves linger in the moment. We soaked in the stillness, grateful for the rare gift of being fully present together. Jace buried his face in my neck, then whispered the words that made my chest ache more than any other. "I'm yours forever." In that moment, I didn't care what tomorrow looked like, because I was his and he was mine. Thank God it didn't take a year of heartbreak and devastation for us to get exactly where we belonged. Here. Just him and me, together, where no one could ever threaten to tear us apart again. That night, Jace fell asleep with his arm still wrapped around my waist, his face buried in the side of my neck as if he couldn't let go, not even in his sleep. And I didn't want him to. It was different. He was different, because this was real. Our souls had been urging our hearts and bodies forward from the very beginning, pushing us into something so intense, so fast, we couldn't tell if it was real at the time. But now it was undeniable, like our souls had known the truth all along, as if they'd met in another lifetime and were finally finding their way back to each other, precisely as they were meant to. I lay there quietly, too happy and fulfilled to sleep, and too intoxicated on this man's sudden devotion to move. The sheets tangled around our legs, my skin still tingling from every place he'd touched. Not just touched, but rediscovered, as if he'd never truly paid attention before. It was like he'd studied me, like he needed to remember how I felt wrapped around him, and the way I sounded when I whispered his name. But now he was still and peaceful. He looked so damn attractive and young like this, like he was softer, but still so deeply him. His jaw, which had been clenched for most of the time since I'd first met him, was finally relaxed. His breathing was slow, steady, and warm against my bare shoulder. I let my eyes trace every inch of him, fully absorbing this new way I was seeing his perfect soul. His broad shoulders, the small scar across his chest, and the subtle twitch of his hand, like even in sleep he was ready to protect. He was so damn beautiful, strong, and controlled. I could now easily see the surgeon in him and why he was amazing in his field of work. Everything about him screamed power and discipline and intensity, but here with me right now, with nothing between us but breath and skin and trust, he looked like a man who had finally let himself rest. And my heart ached for him, because I didn't know how often he allowed himself to do that, or if he had ever done so until tonight. How often did he get to just be? No surgical scrubs or patients whose lives depended on his skilled mind and steady hands. There was no weight on his shoulders, and no expectations, just him. My fingers drifted over his wrist, lightly tracing the veins beneath his skin. His grip on me tightened instinctively, even in sleep, pulling me closer with a quiet groan as he buried his face a little deeper into my neck. "Still here," I whispered, brushing my lips against his temple. "I'm not going anywhere ever again, baby," I said, curling into him more and kissing his chest. I lay there with his heartbeat steady against my back, knowing deep down, no matter what happened next, this night was carved into me forever.
Jace. I woke up more satisfied than I'd been in my entire damn life, and I glanced over at the woman who was the reason for that, seeing that she was still asleep. The silk sheets were tangled around her hips, while her bare back rose and fell with each soft breath she peacefully took. Her hair was a mess of curls across the pillow, her perfect mouth slightly open, while one arm reached toward the side of the bed where I'd been before I slipped out from under her. God, she looked so damn beautiful, being ravished, satiated, and more than all that, safe with me again. I stood at the edge of the bed for a moment, just watching her, memorizing her, and then it hit me.
That strange, quiet calm I'd only ever found in operating rooms right before cutting into a beating heart. Only this time, mine was the one laid bare. Last night, I didn't just make love to her. I vowed something with my hands, with my mouth, and with every part of me that had once forgotten how to feel. I memorized her like I memorized complicated anatomy with slow, reverent obsession. But it was even deeper than that, because it wasn't out of need, it was out of want. Every kiss was a promise, and every touch was a reckoning. I wasn't trying to win her over like in a normal relationship, because God have mercy, nothing about us or this pull between us was normal. It was something bigger, something more profound. So last night, all I did was prove what I'd known in silence for months, and it took nearly losing all hope of a future with her to show it finally. And that was that this woman, this impossibly strong, soft, guarded woman, was mine. She was always meant to be mine. Before the first night we even met, fate already knew, and now I did too. I saw it clearly, like I'd known it my entire fucking life. Nothing about what happened last night felt casual. God only knew I'd had plenty of sex before, all of which was fast, forgettable, and necessary in the heat of those fleeting moments. But last night wasn't about release. It was about surrendering to all of her without question. The grand suite I'd asked Sebastian to prepare for us opened onto a luxurious, expansive private deck, one of his personal luxuries that most guests never got to see aboard Vanguard. And true to form, my good friend wasted no time in making sure Andy and I could enjoy it exactly as it was meant to be. As much as I wanted to stay here and never leave this moment I was cherishing, I had to check on Duke. Once on deck, I glanced outside, seeing the Adriatic sparkling like molten sapphire, while the sun gently rose over this majestic sea. The yacht's engines were quiet, anchored just off the coast of Havar, while the sunlight spilled across the polished teak deck. I inhaled deeply, letting the warm, salty air fill my lungs as a light breeze greeted me the moment I stepped outside, coffee in hand, already scanning the deck for where the rascal was likely bossing the dog-sitter around. I nodded at the steward as he stepped out of a private passageway onto the deck where I was having a quick cup of coffee, and watched as he went about setting things in place to prepare for Sebastian and Darcy's guests. Somewhere below, I heard Sebastian laughing with Jake and Darcy, and then I spotted the pup of the hour. Mr. Duke was being walked by one of the staff on the lower deck, his tail wagging, and his goofy head turning like he expected to see Andy at any minute. Little shit's already being spoiled by the staff, I thought, watching two more staff members walk up to greet him. Looks like I didn't even need to check on the con artist. I looked up and spotted the Hawk brothers on the deck where the helipad was. I decided to give Andy a few more minutes of sound sleep and joined the men, since it had been a minute since I'd seen Titus's younger brothers, Colton and Wyatt. When I stepped out onto the helipad deck, I smirked as I saw Titus leaning against the rail in a gray linen button-down, holding court with his usual cool dominance. His next youngest brother, Colton, had a leather-bound portfolio open on a teak table, while Wyatt, the youngest of the three Spanish Casanovas, was sipping his espresso and wearing aviators as if he were ready for a Black Ops mission. Catching a bit of the conversation as I approached, and hearing the word Amalfi, I knew what it was about. The three brothers, who worked more than they slept, and loved their women whenever they could spare the time, were discussing the launch of their new resort on the famous Italian coast. Last I heard about it from Titus, Colton had spearheaded this one. Cliffside suites, underwater wine cellars, and the kind of infinity pool that made these billionaires feel like gods. "Buenos dias, hermano," Titus said without looking up. "You sleep?" he questioned, with humor in his voice. I smirked. Eventually. Wyatt grinned over his cup. "That explains why she's not here." Or does it? Colton added with a soft laugh. It's been a while, I said, reaching out to shake Wyatt's hand while I clapped Colton on his shoulder. How's the hotel coming along? I think that's the last I'd heard from you both. Oh, you know how this goes with us, Wyatt said. We think we have things nailed down until Colton comes in with his fucking stiff budgets, and while that shit's happening, my stiff budgets are the problem, eh? Colton interjected humorously. Titus is the one who comes in with the goddamn underwater wine cellar, sending my ass back to the drawing board because someone around here needs to ensure we're still profitable on day one. Stop whining, Titus laughed, then looked at me. Speaking of little bitches, I haven't talked to you since you were planning to handle that ex of Andy's. He eyed me speculatively, saying without words that he would be more than happy to handle the son of a bitch if I hadn't yet. I met his eyes. That fucker's gone, and I'm pretty sure it's permanent. I gave him a strong recommendation to leave the state. I brought my attorney to his dealership, where he signed over full custody to Andy. Titus raised a brow. That is all? I didn't put a hit on him, if that's what you are getting at. I chuckled and took another sip of coffee. You know that's exactly what Titus would want, Wyatt smirked. I sighed and looked at Titus. If it helps you to refrain from performing a legit disappearing act, I also made sure he won't open his mouth again about her or anyone else. Let's say his little deal with the heiress isn't as buried as he thought. Titus smiled faintly. He's lucky it was you, man. Why's that? Because if it had been me, Titus said, lifting his espresso, the man wouldn't be able to walk again after I got done ensuring his mouth stayed shut. He nodded. Is everything okay with Andy? Yeah, we're all good. I smiled at him. Titus grinned. Excellent. Now, promise you'll take care of her this time before I make sure she's perfectly taken care of. Done. Now you boys enjoy your business dealings, I said, already turning away. I've got a woman to get back to so I can keep my promise. Good to see you, man. I suppose we probably won't see you again until the wedding? Colton chuckled. Probably not, I smiled, and then left to get back to Andy. When I returned to the suite, I found her exactly where I expected her to be, looking like an angel as she leaned on the teak railing of the private deck. Her hair was loose and windswept, and she was wearing nothing but the button-down shirt I had worn the night before. The Adriatic glittered beyond her, and the world grew quiet around us. She hadn't heard me come in, and I didn't say a word. I just stepped in behind her and wrapped myself around her like I'd always belonged there. She didn't flinch or stiffen. She only exhaled like her lungs finally remembered how to breathe now that we were together again. You up early to check on the havoc Duke's most likely causing everyone? She asked, her voice humored. Duke's a celebrity downstairs, I muttered. 3 crew members and the chef were feeding him breakfast sausages like he's the damn king of Croatia. I gently placed my lips against her neck. I'm only late getting back because I ran into Titus and his brothers on the way back. Ah, how are the fabulous Hawk brothers this fine morning? She asked in a cute voice. 2 are great, and one of them is begrudgingly happy that you're back in my arms, I teased, while she turned in my arms with a dazzling smile. Oh, I also informed Hawk that he doesn't need to put a hit on your ex. I chuckled. He's still a bit protective of you. I kissed her nose. But he is happy that man will not be a problem for you again. Now I was lost in her eyes, the ones I'd dreamt about for months, the ones I memorized in silence while she was gone, the ones that broke my heart when she walked away to protect me. I cradled her face gently, letting my thumb brush her cheek. You didn't have to go through all of that for me, she said. Why wouldn't I? You did that for me, I said quietly. You left when you didn't want to, and you carried all that fear and pain alone. Her eyes welled, but she didn't look away. "I thought it was the only way to protect you. I knew what he had on you, and I couldn't be the reason they took it all from you because I had a psycho ex. I wouldn't risk your license, the life you built, or the good man you are." "You don't protect a man like me by leaving him," I said, my voice rough now. "You stand with him. You fight beside him. You love him anyway. And God help me, you did. Even when you left." She started to cry, but I shook my head, wiping her tears. "You never let me down, Andy. Not once. I let you believe I wouldn't survive it. I let you think I couldn't handle being yours in the mess of it. But I would have walked through hell for you. I did. And I'd do it again." I took her hands, placed one over my heart. "I fix other people's hearts for a living," I whispered. "But you're the only one who's ever managed to fix mine." She laughed through a sob, and I kissed her, slow and deep, like I had all the time in the world, because I did. Because from now on, we did. I rested my forehead against hers and said what I'd been waiting to say. "From this day forward, I'm yours, gorgeous." My thumb brushed her cheek. "I'll protect your heart like I protect lives in my hands." I kissed her, slow, certain. "I'll love Brandon like he's mine, and I'll never walk away. Never let you do it again either." "Chase," she whispered, trembling. "You're the love of my life, Andy Miller, and I will spend the rest of mine proving that every single day." I kissed her forehead. "Everything changes now, just like I told you last night when I brought your cute ass into this room and proved it to you." The sea shimmered around us. The yacht rocked gently beneath our bare feet, and the woman I waited a lifetime for finally wrapped her arms around me. It didn't matter where we were, on a yacht in Croatia or in Southern California. I was home with her. Epilogue. Jace. 4 months into loving her right this time. After everything we'd been through since the night we met, the perfect first night of fucking, the constant gnawing need for more of her, rushing into something without real communication, the wasted time of watching her date Titus, the threats, the heartache, and helping her finally close the door on a psychotic ex, I was finally in a place where the woman I loved was letting me stay. This morning it was just us men. Me, a toddler clutching goldfish in both fists, and the man who helped raise the woman I could never get enough of. Andy's dad, Harry, had been cool with me from the start, probably because Jake was up there clearing my name after he'd bought a goddamn sailboat from him. Even though we hit it off the first time Andy introduced me to her dad, and I'd seen him and his wife, Marcia, a few times during drop-offs and pickups with Brandon, we'd never really had the chance to get to know each other well. But today I planned to change all that. Today was going to be the first time he and I would spend quality time together, just the two of us. Well, 3 of us, actually, out on my sailboat, gliding across the Pacific like it was made for this exact moment. I had Brandon tucked into the seat beside me, and I smiled down at him, holding onto the wheel like it might fly him to the damn moon. He still wasn't talking in complete sentences yet, just a mix of clear words and a whole symphony of baby babble. But this always happy boy didn't need words to show me how excited he was. My cute little buddy wrapped one chubby hand around my thumb the second Andy passed him off, and hadn't let go since. Harry leaned back in the passenger seat with a half smile, watching me juggle a toddler, the tiller, and a bottle of juice like it was any other day, sailing up Southern California's coastline. "You're sweating," he said, grinning behind aviators. "That little man got you working." "Feels a little like I'm being hazed," I muttered, catching the bottle mid-spill. "Welcome to the club, kid," he said with a soft laugh. "He reminds me a lot of Andy.
He gave Brandon a playful smile. She was the same way with me. Wild, stubborn, full of questions, and 10 steps ahead of the world by the time she was 5. Most of all, she was always happy and in love with the life God blessed her with. I grinned. Did she get that from you? Hell no. That's all her mother. The no bullshit and sarcasm is what she gets from me, he exhaled. It's good to see all of that coming back in her after all this time. That asshole hurt her in so many ways, even long before the stunt he pulled when you came around. I felt the fire of rage burn in me again, and was fucking grateful that bastard was out of her life. Last I heard from my friend Titus, that prick was living in Vegas, dealing cards in a rundown casino off the Strip, I said, trying to refrain from sounding pissed off at the thought of the fucker. He won't ever be a problem for her or this boy again. You're a good man for watching out for her like that, he said, his expression solemn, and I could see the pain that Dick caused even her own parents with his treatment of their daughter. Marcia and I are indebted to you for what you did. No need to be indebted, sir, I said with a smile. It was the least I could do after the idiot threatened her because I started dating her. Well, her mother and I both have noticed that she's been lighter lately. Ever since you. I smiled in response, relief washing over me, knowing that this man's opinion of me honestly could make or break me at the moment. I'd held hearts in my hands on operating tables, but nothing made me sweat like hoping I'd pass this test with the people Andy loved the most. Brandon cut the tension that was building when he squealed and pointed out to a seagull, letting out a string of excited sounds. I smiled and gave his tiny belly a quick tickle. He's good with you, Harry said after a pause. That doesn't happen often. He's a good kid, I said quietly. I'm very fortunate that he's taken to me so easily. I grinned. I guess I'm lucky that you and Marcia seem to feel the same with me as well. He chuckled. You earned that shit, kid. After what you did to help our baby, the fact that you were there for her when you didn't have to be, there's something to be said about a man who helps save a woman, even when she's hurting him. It means a lot that you feel that way, and I'm grateful to you for saying that, I said with sincerity. We sailed for nearly another hour, talking about work and boats and life, watching the sun rise higher over the waves that stretched smooth and steady. By the time we returned to the marina, Brandon was napping against my chest, like he and I had been sailing together since the day he was born. I loved everything about the path I'd chosen in life, and I would fight with everything I had to keep it. I would have loved to stay out on the boat longer, but tonight was the dinner Andy and I had planned, our chance to host both of our parents, let them meet, and give them a small taste of the life we were so excited to share. Andy, Brandon, and her parents arrived early, while my parents showed up late, but thank God they were all smiles. I stood at my outdoor kitchen, grilling steaks and split lobster with a beer in hand, feeling like a goddamn chief family man and watching everyone with quiet amusement. Andy's mom and mine were seated just inside, chatting while Brandon played at their feet with his toys, entertaining them through the open doors that overlooked the patio. Out here with the men, Dad and Harry had found some common ground talking about selling yachts, laughing over their cognacs. It was everything I'd hoped for in this family gathering, and something I knew damn well my parents weren't exactly used to. As lovely as it was, there was nothing that could match how perfect and beautiful Andy looked as she stood at the kitchen island, cutting up vegetables with an angelic smile, barefoot and glowing. Damn, she was the best thing I could have ever asked to come into my life, and if my heart swelled with any more love and gratitude for the woman, it felt like it would burst. Once dinner was served, we all gathered around the formal dining table, the one that had never held a single plate, despite costing 10 grand and being imported from Italy. No one had ever sat in those chairs, and I hadn't even realized just how killer the view of the ocean was from this room. I might need to remodel and convert this into a living room, relocating the dining area elsewhere.
How many other rooms in this house would surprise me like this? Spaces I'd never used until Andy came into my life.
"So, what's the big news, kids?" Andy's dad questioned after swallowing a bite of steak, the booze having loosened him up. "I think everyone here by now knows that Andy and I aren't just casually dating anymore," I said, eyeing everyone's smiles. "And so, I was grateful when she took me up on my impassioned plea for her and Brandon to move in with me." "This is definitely news," my mother said first. "And what are you going to do with your place?" Andy's dad answered, being the typical concerned dad. "I'm probably just going to rent it out and let the renters pay it off for me," Andy answered with a smile. "And are we looking at wedding bells in the future?" Andy's mom asked, addressing her daughter with a warm smile. "We're not that far down the road," Andy chuckled, her bashful eyes glancing to my adoring ones, then back to her mom. "One step at a time." "Although marriage would be the optimum choice," I interjected. "Andy and I learned some lessons the hard way by rushing into things. We don't want to make that mistake again." "Well, if it means anything," my dad said, in a tone I didn't recognize, "I'm proud of you, son. And your mother and I look forward to enjoying more dinner dates with you all."
My dad's words meant more to me than I could ever verbalize. It wasn't just the surprising part that he said it at all, but how he said it. The old man never seemed entirely genuine when he told me he was proud of me, not even during medical school or with my career as a doctor. But this felt real. And the fact that he was proud of me for something as simple yet monumental as the woman I chose to build a life with, and the decision we'd made just a week ago to start that life by moving in together, that shit was gold to me. It was probably cheesy to have a dinner date with our parents just to announce we were moving in together, because honestly, who really gave a fuck? It's not like we were announcing an engagement. Still, Andy and I wanted to see our parents together in the same room, if only to gauge whether holidays would suck in the future. Surprisingly, everything was nearly perfect in how the two separate worlds blended into one wonderful little moment that Andy and I couldn't be more grateful for. So now, when the bigger announcements came, at least we knew our parents wouldn't stress us out about it. We spent the rest of the night chatting, our parents getting to know each other better, and everyone enjoying each other's company, but I was secretly relieved when everyone went home and the house was finally quiet. Brandon was asleep upstairs in the crib I'd had set up for him after Andy and I got back from Sebastian and Darcy's wedding. The dishes were done and the lights were low. Everything was perfect, and my happiness was utterly indescribable. Once the house was locked up for the night, I jogged up the stairs to our room, eager to take my woman in my arms and show her how much I'd missed her today. When I reached the top step, Andy was walking in from the wraparound deck, the breeze still drifting in through all the open sliding doors, cooling the entire upstairs. And damn if she didn't take my breath away. Hair loose and wavy, wearing one of my t-shirts and nothing else. She looked like the perfect ending to the best night of my life. "Hey, handsome," she said softly, voice a little shaky. I walked to her and pulled her into my arms, hoping nothing was said to her outside of my presence that may have upset her. "You okay, gorgeous?" "I've never been happier," she smiled at me, but I saw concern in her eyes. "We've already discussed your cute ass not saying what's on your mind," I said, reaching my hand up to her face. "What's bothering you? I can see it in your eyes, baby." She leaned into me, lacing our fingers over her stomach. "Well, I'm pregnant," she said, in a tone that was equal parts excited and worried. "Holy shit," I answered in complete shock. "Pregnant? As in 4 months pregnant," she said, smiling, but she still had that damned worried look on her face. 4 months? I repeated, grinning. "Are you telling me Sebastian and Darcy's wedding is the reason for this?" I laughed, feeling more happiness in that moment than I ever had before. She laughed, and tears filled her eyes as she nodded. Yes, it had to be during that time. When did you find out? I asked, doing the math in my head. I mean, how are you 4 months along and just now telling me? I just found out too, she said, before continuing as if she was explaining herself. So I didn't skip my period, not really. They've been spotty and sporadic, but I thought it was irregular from stress or something. It's not that unusual, she continued nervously. Lately I've been overly tired and feeling really bloated, or so I thought, but nothing like when I was pregnant with Brandon, so it didn't cross my mind at all. Then when I was due for my annual exam at the OBGYN, that's when my doctor came back with the unexpected reason for me being tired. I covered my mouth in happiness and shock, and I shook my head in awe that this was happening. It's my fault, she sighed, looking defeated. I missed a couple of days or more of taking the pill while we were broken up, and I think it didn't have time. Baby, stop. You're telling me this like you're explaining why you made a huge mistake. I cut her off. Don't ever apologize to me for a gift that is so beautiful, amazing, and completely unexpected. I know, but, Andy, I'm not him, I reminded her, knowing this situation must be triggering her fears of being walked out on the last time she told her boyfriend she was pregnant. I know that situation was traumatizing for you, but I'm not him. I want this. I want you. And I want Brandon. This is the most beautiful miracle we could ask for. I pulled her tightly into my arms when she buried her tears into her hands, and I just kissed the top of her head and held her. After a few moments, I turned her gently in my arms. This is our life now. I swear to God, since you and Brandon have been in my life, I've never felt more complete. I never asked for any of this because I never knew I needed it. I smiled into her glassy eyes. Yet here I am, the happiest motherfucker on the planet, and I just leveled up with this amazing news. You're a gift to me. And now, I placed my hand over her stomach. You're giving me another gift. I exhaled. You know, I wanted to do this differently, but the plan I had, no matter how beautifully romantic I'd planned, wouldn't compare to how you and I seemed to just work so effortlessly and perfectly. Jace, you don't have to. I want to. More than anything in this world, gorgeous, I said, taking her left hand and kissing her ring finger. Marry me, Andy. That is all that's left to complete this whirlwind of a perfect romance and life. She shook her head, crying and smiling. No, I said with a laugh. Yes, she answered through tears. Yes, you make me so happy, baby. I swear if someone had told me before I met you that this would be my life now, I would have never believed them. Those days are over now, beautiful, I said. You're mine now. I smiled and ran my hand over her stomach again. This beautiful baby growing inside of you is mine, and that handsome baby boy was born so he could be mine too. I reached for her face, kissed her perfect lips, and smiled. You're the best thing I never knew I needed, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you. I scooped her up into my arms. Starting right now. My lips found hers, claiming them and thanking her with a heated kiss that said everything. She embodied the very essence of who I was, and my excitement for our future together nearly overwhelmed me. So I planned to channel that energy by pulling my fiancé into my arms and worshiping her goddess-like body until she begged me to stop.
Andy. Brandon and I were moved into Jace's place within the month, and if I didn't stop calling it Jace's place, I was starting to really believe he wasn't lying when he said we'd be buying a new place together, so that I would fully understand the house was mine too. It was surreal, though. Most relationships didn't work as effortlessly as ours seemed to. That made it both exciting and unsettling at the same time. I tried not to dwell on that because I wasn't a fool. I knew every relationship was different. And Ash practically demanded I finally accept that Jace and I were soulmates and stop comparing us to anyone else. But damn, it was hard. Reality hit when we officially moved Duke into Jace's house the week after Brandon and I moved in. We used the same determination to make our relationship work to help Duke adjust too. Sometimes it was as hilarious as it was frustrating, like when Duke got passive-aggressive toward me whenever Jace even tried to hug me. And having sex? That was a whole other challenge that Jace was determined to conquer with the little guy. Instead of letting Duke's barking from his crate across the room bother him, Jace found a perfect, almost hypnotic thrusting rhythm that matched each bark. However, it was all becoming too obnoxious, so I wasn't surprised when Jace told me he'd found a guy like Caesar Milan to help all of us get to the bottom of Duke's issues, and maybe the problems between us that were fueling Duke's possessiveness over women and their men. About an hour after Brandon fell asleep, Jace joined me on the lounge chairs to watch the last of the sunset.
"This is the guy."
I took his phone and studied the website he'd been looking at for the past hour when I thought he'd been reading a medical article. "Okay," I said, as I stared at the website on his phone.
"It seems this guy might have the extra magic we need,"
he said with humor. The background was a looping video of waves crashing against a lavender coastline, except the water ran in slow motion and reversed every few seconds, as if time itself obeyed this man. My eyes scanned the website, reading about the man that Jace had discovered might help with Duke's dominance issues. Canine Behavioral Harmonizer. Because your dog isn't disobedient, he's misunderstood. For over 13 years, Oren Raylin has guided both humans and their companion animals through energetic realignment and behavioral reintegration, using nonverbal intuitive feedback, vibration-centric dialogue, and elemental recalibration practices. He does not train dogs, he communes with them. Oren holds certifications in emotional resonance therapy, human canine harmonic tuning, HCHT, and is a level 3 Reiki facilitator for mammals. He is currently developing his own proprietary method of bark frequency interpretation, which involves attuning the client's aura to their canine's unresolved ancestral distress. Sessions often include breathwork with your canine, sage-assisted leash detachment, grounding rituals through mindful paw contact, behavioral pattern decoding using touchless cueing and ancient tonality, optional cacao ceremony for humans only. At our core, dogs are not meant to be trained. They are meant to be trusted. Oren Raylin. Beneath that was a portrait of Oren, standing barefoot in a stone circle surrounded by 4 wolves, one of whom wore what looked like a hand-beaded crystal necklace. He had long, copper-streaked hair pulled into a half knot at the crown of his head, layered with a sand-colored robe and thin leather sandals. His eyes were graysher-gray and intense as fuck. "Jesus," I said, laughing and handing Jace back his phone. "How'd you find that guy, through Ash?" Jace chuckled and looked at the images of Oren again.
"One could easily assume that, but no. The damn guy pops up everywhere on these dog specialist searches I've been doing."
"Well, there's the reason he's popping up under the keywords you're giving the search engine." I laughed again. "We don't need a dog specialist, just someone to help us train him to be more obedient and listen to us."
"Nah."
Jace smiled with almost a little wickedness in his eyes.
"Duke needs something more, especially with our baby on the way. He's been so damn unhinged lately that we need a dog guru like that guy."
He pulled the phone close to his face to look at the guy's picture again.
"His eyes are so intense he actually looks like he could hypnotize squirrels."
I shook my head and returned to my Pinterest board, where I had been pinning pictures of nursery ideas.
"You've gotta be fucking kidding me."
Jace laughed.
"Look at this shit."
I looked over at his phone, where a side panel popped open with a quote. "The leash is not for control. It's the karmic thread that binds." I pointed at the screen. "There's a testimony. What's it say?"
"Oren had helped a formerly feral rescue chihuahua reclaim his inner power using singing bowls and smoked quartz,"
Jace said, laughing with me. "You really want to try this guy?" Jace reached for his beer and took a sip. "Desperate times call for desperate measures, baby," he said with a victorious smile. "This is definitely happening." Jace followed through, moved some mountains, and a week later, we had Jake and Ash over as we all watched Oren prepare to take on Duke and his issues. The dude was cool, smelled like weed, and showed up in a Volkswagen van circa 1968. So, if anything, he was dead on legit so far with what his website said about him, in my opinion. I watched, hiding my smile as Duke lay flat on the teak deck just in front of the pool, as if he'd just released years of suppressed guilt over chewing a table leg. A ring of polished stones surrounded him, and incense smoke curled lazily toward the sun-drenched sky. Ash and Jake had just arrived, and after a few exchanged amused glances, we turned our attention back to Oren kneeling before my dog, like Duke was the Dalai Lama in disguise. "Is it just me?" Jake said slowly. "Or does it smell like patchouli and sandalwood and possibly a cult?" "Shh," Ash said, the only one who seemed to be intrigued, which, of course, almost made me lose it. Oren Ryler lifted his head from his silent communion and whispered to Duke, "You no longer need to carry the tension of your humans. Your bark is no longer your burden." Duke sneezed, and Jace and Jake both snorted at the same time. I had no idea at this point who was going to lose their shit first. "That sneeze was a release," Oren murmured. "Old karma. Maybe a past life." "Shit," Jace whispered to Jake. "Could you imagine the fucking past life of a dog?" "No." Jake tried to hold a serious expression. "I can't even imagine anyone speaking like this to a dog, much less bringing up their past lives." Jace chuckled and leaned in toward Jake. "He saged Duke's bed and asked the ocean for permission to enter his canine energy field." "That was the kelp moon blessing," Ash corrected. "It's on his website." "Baby, it concerns me sometimes that you know this shit," Jake said, sipping his coffee and intently focused on Oren and Duke. I closed my eyes, forcing myself not to explode into laughter at this situation. "Oh, I read more on the website earlier," Jace muttered. "He doesn't train dogs, he aligns them with cosmic vibration." "So do we Venmo him or sacrifice a goat?" Jake asked, crossing his arms while studying the psychedelic scene before us. I crouched down slowly, watching Duke, who was now flat on his back, paws splayed out like he'd just received Reiki from one of the gods. "Is he okay?" I questioned Oren. "Better than okay," Oren said without turning. "He's rebalancing. Processing. This is a full-body energetic surrender. It's beautiful." Ash whispered, "He's giving the dog a chakra detox." "Oh God," Jake said. "And Duke's loving it, apparently," I added with a laugh. "He hasn't relaxed like this in months." "Nor have I," Jace added. "Which is why we're doing this." Oren finally rose from his kneeling position, the long folds of his robe floating around him like he was weightless. He faced us all, palms up in greeting. "The trauma is leaving him," Oren said softly. "He no longer feels your fear with him." Jace's mouth opened. "My what? Huh?" "Your fear. It bleeds into your scent," Oren said gently. "You carry it behind your sternum. But you're not broken, just heavy. Let the dog lead you back to lightness." "That little guy thinks I'm fearful of him?" Jace argued. "No, good friend. He doesn't think it. He feels it." "Shit," Jake said in a muffled laugh. "That dog has got your number, pal." Duke let out a sigh so long it sounded like he was releasing the grief of 1,000 dog years. "He really is amazing, isn't he?" Ash said with her cute laugh. "I don't know if I want to tip him or run background checks on every dog he's ever touched," I said with a laugh. "You mean healed," Oren said, nodding in gratitude. I looked back down at Duke, blissed out, eyes half-lidded, and snoring softly. Jace did the same, looking past Oren when Oren returned his attention to Duke.
Well, Duke's either channeling divine wisdom,
he said,
or he microdosed this morning and took us with him.
Jake clapped his back.
Doesn't matter. The dog's chill, the girl's smiling, and I haven't been this entertained since Ash tried goat yoga.
Ash nudged her husband in the side. You make fun of all this shit, but look, it actually worked. She's not lying, I said with a laugh.
Well, Andy and I will put Oren's work into action tonight and see if he's cleansed of the past life demons he apparently dragged into this one,
Jace said with a laugh.
Well then, I expect a positive report on this bitch yapper in the morning,
Jake answered, with one last sip of his coffee.
Jace. Later that night. We were 10 minutes into what I knew was going to be a damn unforgettable night. Andy was beneath me, hair fanned across the pillow, with her breath catching in these soft, addictive little whimpers. Her legs were wrapped tight around my waist, her nails dragging down my back, and I just whispered something filthy about worshiping her until sunrise, when it happened. Bark! Which was rapidly followed by a series of unholy shrieks that made my brain misfire. What the? I stilled. Is that Duke? Andy's eyes flew open. No! No. Oren said he was balanced now. He's in harmony with the universe, remember? Bark, bark, bark. Howl. It sounded like he was actively fighting demons downstairs. Then came the second scream, and this time it was from Brandon. Shit. I was already off the bed and yanking on my boxers, running half naked through the house. We forgot to put Duke in his crate. Jace, he's in Brandon's room. He fell asleep on his bed. I took the stairs in 2 bounds, trying to get down there to shut the yapper up before this house sounded off in the worst sense of the phrase. When I burst into Brandon's room, it was like a war zone. Brandon was standing in his crib, screaming bloody murder, while Duke was losing his damn mind in the corner, barking at something. What the hell is it? I yelled to Duke over the chaos, flipping on the light. And that's when I saw it. A goddamn mouse. The tiny bastard skittered across the floor like it had something to prove, and Duke was absolutely feral, barking and lunging, sending Brandon into full toddler meltdown mode. Without thinking, I lunged, and in one perfectly placed stomp, it was over. Mouse, deceased. Brandon, traumatized but unharmed. Me, also traumatized, and processing what the bottom of my foot must have looked like. Mostly feeling disgusted about what had just happened. Duke, completely silent, still, and staring at me. He glanced back at the unmoving mouse, then blinked once after he looked at me, no longer panting, in total silence. And dare I say, submission? I raised an eyebrow, knowing this dog must have just found its place, thinking that the mouse paid the high price for what I might do to him if he didn't stop yapping when told. I smiled at him, now lying there at attention, giving me the respect I deserved from the moment I decided to bring him into Andy's life. I exhaled, proud to have finally fixed the barking situation for good, something I was now sure Oren never actually managed to do. That's when I looked at the dog, who'd finally learned I was the alpha, not him, and said, "Pretty quiet now, aren't you, you little prick?" And then, you better damn well believe we all lived happily ever after. This concludes Dr. Stone by Raylin Marks. Narrated by Natalie Eaton and Jeremy York. Copyright 2025 by Raylin Marks. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Raylin Marks and was produced in the year 2026 by Tantor Media Incorporated, a division of Recorded Books, which holds the copyright thereto. Please visit Tantor.com for more information on our growing library of unabridged audiobooks.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.
You don't have to. I want to. More than anything in this world, gorgeous, I said, taking her left hand and kissing her ring finger. Marry me, Andy. That is all that's left to complete this whirlwind of a perfect romance and life. She shook her head, crying and smiling. No, I said with a laugh. Yes, she answered through tears. Yes, you make me so happy, baby. I swear if someone had told me before I met you that this would be my life now, I would have never believed them. Those days are over now, beautiful, I said. You're mine now. I smiled and ran my hand over her stomach again. This beautiful baby growing inside of you is mine, and that handsome baby boy was born so he could be mine too. I reached for her face, kissed her perfect lips, and smiled. You're the best thing I never knew I needed, and I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to you. I scooped her up into my arms. Starting right now. My lips found hers, claiming them and thanking her with a heated kiss that said everything. She embodied the very essence of who I was, and my excitement for our future together nearly overwhelmed me. So I planned to channel that energy by pulling my fiancée into my arms and worshiping her goddess-like body until she begged me to stop.
Andy. Brandon and I were moved into Jace's place within the month, and if I didn't stop calling it Jace's place, I was starting to really believe he wasn't lying when he said we'd be buying a new place together, so that I would fully understand the house was mine too. It was surreal, though. Most relationships didn't work as effortlessly as ours seemed to. That made it both exciting and unsettling at the same time. I tried not to dwell on that because I wasn't a fool. I knew every relationship was different. And Ash practically demanded I finally accept that Jace and I were soulmates and stop comparing us to anyone else. But damn, it was hard. Reality hit when we officially moved Duke into Jace's house the week after Brandon and I moved in. We used the same determination to make our relationship work to help Duke adjust too. Sometimes it was as hilarious as it was frustrating, like when Duke got passive-aggressive toward me whenever Jace even tried to hug me. And having sex? That was a whole other challenge that Jace was determined to conquer with the little guy. Instead of letting Duke's barking from his crate across the room bother him, Jace found a perfect, almost hypnotic thrusting rhythm that matched each bark. However, it was all becoming too obnoxious, so I wasn't surprised when Jace told me he'd found a guy like Caesar Milan to help all of us get to the bottom of Duke's issues, and maybe the problems between us that were fueling Duke's possessiveness over women and their men. About an hour after Brandon fell asleep, Jace joined me on the lounge chairs to watch the last of the sunset.
This is the guy.
I took his phone and studied the website he'd been looking at for the past hour when I thought he'd been reading a medical article. Okay, I said, as I stared at the website on his phone.
It seems this guy might have the extra magic we need,
he said with humor. The background was a looping video of waves crashing against a lavender coastline, except the water ran in slow motion and reversed every few seconds, as if time itself obeyed this man. My eyes scanned the website, reading about the man that Jace had discovered might help with Duke's dominance issues. Canine Behavioral Harmonizer. Because your dog isn't disobedient, he's misunderstood. For over 13 years, Oren Ryler has guided both humans and their companion animals through energetic realignment and behavioral reintegration, using nonverbal intuitive feedback, vibration-centric dialogue, and elemental recalibration practices. He does not train dogs. He communes with them. Oren holds certifications in emotional resonance therapy, human canine harmonic tuning, HCHT, and is a level 3 Reiki facilitator for mammals. He is currently developing his own proprietary method of bark frequency interpretation, which involves attuning the client's aura to their canine's unresolved ancestral distress. Sessions often include breathwork with your canine, sage-assisted leash detachment, grounding rituals through mindful paw contact, Behavioral pattern decoding using touchless cueing and ancient tonality. Optional cacao ceremony for humans only. At our core, dogs are not meant to be trained. They are meant to be trusted. Orrin Ryler. Beneath that was a portrait of Orrin, standing barefoot in a stone circle surrounded by 4 wolves, one of whom wore what looked like a hand-beaded crystal necklace. He had long, copper-streaked hair pulled into a half knot at the crown of his head, layered with a sand-colored robe and thin leather sandals. His eyes were graysher-gray and intense as fuck. "Jesus," I said, laughing and handing Jace back his phone. "How'd you find that guy, through Ash?" Jace chuckled and looked at the images of Orrin again.
One could easily assume that, but no. The damn guy pops up everywhere on these dog specialist searches I've been doing.
Well, there's the reason he's popping up under the keywords you're giving the search engine. I laughed again. We don't need a dog specialist, just someone to help us train him to be more obedient and listen to us.
Nah.
Jace smiled with almost a little wickedness in his eyes.
Duke needs something more, especially with our baby on the way. He's been so damn unhinged lately that we need a dog guru like that guy.
He pulled the phone close to his face to look at the guy's picture again.
His eyes are so intense he actually looks like he could hypnotize squirrels.
I shook my head and returned to my Pinterest board, where I had been pinning pictures of nursery ideas.
You've gotta be fucking kidding me.
Jace laughed.
Look at this shit.
I looked over at his phone, where a side panel popped open with a quote. "The leash is not for control. It's the karmic thread that binds." I pointed at the screen. "There's a testimony. What's it say?"
Orrin had helped a formerly feral rescue chihuahua reclaim his inner power using singing bowls and smoked quartz,
Jace said, laughing with me. "You really want to try this guy?" Jace reached for his beer and took a sip.
"Desperate times call for desperate measures, baby,"
he said with a victorious smile.
"This is definitely happening."
Jace followed through, moved some mountains, and a week later, we had Jake and Ash over as we all watched Orrin prepare to take on Duke and his issues. The dude was cool, smelled like weed, and showed up in a Volkswagen van circa 1968. So, if anything, he was dead on legit so far with what his website said about him, in my opinion. I watched, hiding my smile as Duke lay flat on the teak deck just in front of the pool, as if he'd just released years of suppressed guilt over chewing a table leg. A ring of polished stones surrounded him, and incense smoke curled lazily toward the sun-drenched sky. Ash and Jake had just arrived, and after a few exchanged amused glances, we turned our attention back to Orrin kneeling before my dog, like Duke was the Dalai Lama in disguise.
"Is it just me?"
Jake said slowly.
"Or does it smell like patchouli and sandalwood and possibly a cult?"
"Shh," Ash said, the only one who seemed to be intrigued, which, of course, almost made me lose it. Orrin Ryler lifted his head from his silent communion and whispered to Duke,
"You no longer need to carry the tension of your humans. Your bark is no longer your burden."
Duke sneezed, and Jace and Jake both snorted at the same time. I had no idea at this point who was going to lose their shit first.
"That sneeze was a release,"
Orrin murmured.
"Old karma. Maybe a past life."
"Shit," Jace whispered to Jake.
"Could you imagine the fucking past life of a dog? No?"
Jake tried to hold a serious expression.
"I can't even imagine anyone speaking like this to a dog, much less bringing up their past lives."
Jace chuckled and leaned in toward Jake.
"He saged Duke's bed and asked the ocean for permission to enter his canine energy field."
"That was the kelp moon blessing," Ash corrected. "It's on his website."
"Baby, it concerns me sometimes that you know this shit,"
Jake said, sipping his coffee and intently focused on Orrin and Duke. I closed my eyes, forcing myself not to explode into laughter at this situation.
"Oh, I read more on the website earlier,"
Jace muttered.
"He doesn't train dogs, he aligns them with cosmic vibration." So do we Venmo him or sacrifice a goat?
Jake asked, crossing his arms while studying the psychedelic scene before us. I crouched down slowly, watching Duke, who was now flat on his back, paws splayed out like he'd just received Reiki from one of the gods. Is he okay? I questioned Orin.
Better than okay,
Orin said without turning.
He's rebalancing, processing. This is a full-body energetic surrender. It's beautiful.
Ash whispered, "He's giving the dog a chakra detox."
Oh, God,
Jake said. And Duke's loving it, apparently, I added with a laugh. He hasn't relaxed like this in months.
Nor have I,
Jace added.
which is why we're doing this.
Orin finally rose from his kneeling position, the long folds of his robe floating around him like he was weightless. He faced us all, palms up in greeting.
The trauma is leaving him,
Orin said softly.
He no longer feels your fear with him.
Jace's mouth opened.
My what? Huh? Your fear. It bleeds into your scent,
Orin said gently.
You carry it behind your sternum. But you're not broken, just heavy. Let the dog lead you back to lightness.
That little guy thinks I'm fearful of him? Jace argued.
No, good friend. He doesn't think it. He feels it.
Shit, Jake said in a muffled laugh.
That dog has got your number, pal.
Duke let out a sigh so long it sounded like he was releasing the grief of 1,000 dog years. He really is amazing, isn't he? Ash said with her cute laugh. I don't know if I want to tip him or run background checks on every dog he's ever touched, I said with a laugh.
You mean healed,
Orin said, nodding in gratitude. I looked back down at Duke, blissed out, eyes half-lidded, and snoring softly. Jace did the same, looking past Orin when Orin returned his attention to Duke.
Well, Duke's either channeling divine wisdom,
he said,
or he microdosed this morning and took us with him.
Jake clapped his back.
Doesn't matter. The dog's chill, the girl's smiling, and I haven't been this entertained since Ash tried goat yoga.
Ash nudged her husband in the side. You make fun of all this shit, but look, it actually worked. She's not lying, I said with a laugh.
Well, Andy and I will put Orin's work into action tonight and see if he's cleansed of the past life demons he apparently dragged into this one,
Jace said with a laugh.
Well then, I expect a positive report on this bitch yapper in the morning,
Jake answered, with one last sip of his coffee.
Jace. Later that night. We were 10 minutes into what I knew was going to be a damn unforgettable night. Andy was beneath me, hair fanned across the pillow, with her breath catching in these soft, addictive little whimpers. Her legs were wrapped tight around my waist, her nails dragging down my back, and I just whispered something filthy about worshipping her until sunrise, when it happened. Bark! Which was rapidly followed by a series of unholy shrieks that made my brain misfire. What the? I stilled. Is that Duke? Andy's eyes flew open. No! No. Orin said he was balanced now. He's in harmony with the universe, remember? Bark, bark, bark. Howl. It sounded like he was actively fighting demons downstairs. Then came the second scream, and this time it was from Brandon. Shit. I was already off the bed and yanking on my boxers, running half naked through the house. We forgot to put Duke in his crate. Jace, he's in Brandon's room. He fell asleep on his bed. I took the stairs in 2 bounds, trying to get down there to shut the yapper up before this house sounded off in the worst sense of the phrase. When I burst into Brandon's room, it was like a war zone. Brandon was standing in his crib, screaming bloody murder, while Duke was losing his damn mind in the corner, barking at something. What the hell is it? I yelled to Duke over the chaos, flipping on the light. And that's when I saw it. A goddamn mouse.
The tiny bastard skittered across the floor like it had something to prove, and Duke was absolutely feral, barking and lunging, sending Brandon into full toddler meltdown mode. Without thinking, I lunged, and in one perfectly placed stomp, it was over. Mouse, deceased. Brandon, traumatized but unharmed. Me, also traumatized, and processing what the bottom of my foot must have looked like. Mostly feeling disgusted about what had just happened. Duke, completely silent, still, and staring at me. He glanced back at the unmoving mouse, then blinked once after he looked at me, no longer panting, in total silence. And dare I say, submission? I raised an eyebrow, knowing this dog must have just found its place, thinking that the mouse paid the high price for what I might do to him if he didn't stop yapping when told. I smiled at him, now lying there at attention, giving me the respect I deserved from the moment I decided to bring him into Andy's life. I exhaled, proud to have finally fixed the barking situation for good, something I was now sure Oren never actually managed to do. That's when I looked at the dog, who'd finally learned I was the alpha, not him, and said, "Pretty quiet now, aren't you, you little prick?" And then, you better damn well believe we all lived happily ever after. This concludes Dr. Stone by Raylin Marks. Narrated by Natalie Eaton and Jeremy York. Copyright 2025 by Raylin Marks. This unabridged audiobook is published by arrangement with Raylin Marks and was produced in the year 2026 by Tantor Media Incorporated, a division of Recorded Books, which holds the copyright thereto. Please visit Tantor.com for more information on our growing library of unabridged audiobooks.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.